Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series final practice about to get underway. 1 hour to make all the changes and tweak the cars the best they can for 400 miles on Saturday night. Take a look at the playoff standings. Everyone in yellow has won and locked themselves into the playoffs for the final 10 races of the season. Everybody else still fighting for points and potentially a shot at making it to victory lane and locking themselves into that playoff picture. Alongside Dale Jr., Jeff Burton, I'm Rick Allen. First practice, we saw a couple groups go out, Toyotas, Chevrolets, Fords, they all, as a manufacturer, got together, worked together. Will we see anything similar to that, or will we see a bunch of single car runs this time out in this practice session?
I think if we see people go out in a group, it's because they don't like the way their car's driving and they're trying to work on it to make it better. But I expect to see less of that than what we saw in the first practice. The teams just don't want to expose themselves to getting in a wreck and getting a backup car out. So it won't surprise me to see a fair amount of single car runs.
Yeah, we'll see a lot of single car runs. There's, with the new spoiler, they're still kind of sciencing out exactly where they need to be with the rear spring and shock package on the cars. Still probably have a few things on their list to try to figure out if they can implement into the cars to streamline these cars to get them ready for qualifying and get a little more speed out of them.
All right, Steve, you're on the pit box. What does the crew chief have for this final practice?
Well, I think those drivers know what they're talking about. I expect to see a lot of single car runs. But the one thing I will say, Rick, is you wouldn't know up there in your wonderful air-conditioned booth, but it's been a steamy day down here on the pit box. Until just recently, the clouds have kind of rolled in. It's cooled dramatically. Why I say that is if there are teams that are expecting to run in a pack, I think now the weather conditions will match an evening-type race. So if you had some things on your list that you said, oh, that'll get better as the track cools, I think you can go out there and test that right now if you can find a group to run with.
We turned the air conditioning off, Steve, just to make you feel more comfortable. Now, another guy that has to deal with the heat is Marty Snyder.
Indeed, Rick, I'm waiting for you guys to turn on the air conditioning down here, if you would. Can you help us out? Well, we do have some fans here, so that's good. You just saw Xfinity Series practice a moment ago. We saw very few cars run, but check this out. An empty garage area, that means a lot of cars are going to run in this session. We're going to see at least qualifying laps, as you guys mentioned. Some teams maybe even wanting to get in packs, but we're going to see a busy track. Plus, we kind of have some rain in the area, so that's going to add to the activities here this afternoon. So trying to beat the rain, trying to get out and see how your car is in qualifying trim. A lot to happen here in Final Cup practice.
Yeah, Marty, we've noticed that most of the rain, and watching a radar, it's been off to our west, and it's been moving from south to north, but there have been some ominous clouds that have started to make their way over the track now, so it is a little bit darker, a little bit more overcast. You see rain off in the distance, but as these crew chiefs are trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do over this next hour, they've got to keep one eye on the radar to make sure that a pop-up shower doesn't spoil maybe a plan that they had in place.
There you see all the cars on the front straightaway, pit road. Assuming that all the guys out to the grass are going to draft, we might get us a little bit of a pack here early. It's like you said, Jess, some of these guys still got a few things they'd like to feel out in race situations to be around cars in the draft, so we'll see that here early.
Well, hey, Dale, from my seat right here, I can see the grill tape, which tells me what these guys are doing. And you're absolutely right. Eric Almirola, Kevin Harvick, the 48 of Jimmy Johnson, they all have their grills wide open. Well, not wide open, but 80% open. Tells me they're in race runs versus the cars on the inside. This 18 of Kyle Busch seems like it has quite a bit of tape on the grill. I would imagine that is that looks like too small of an opening in my mind to be a race run, so he must be doing qualifying as well as Logano and the 78 behind him.
Yeah, not a lot of opening there.
Typically what happens is they'll let the first guy here, Kyle Busch, he'll go first. He'll get a clean racetrack, go ahead and go out there and make this single car run that he's lined up for. It's kind of the responsibility of the pack to not impede somebody trying to run a single car run. So their spotters are trying to get them out on the racetrack without ruining a potential single car run for another car. So it's pretty interesting how the spotters are up there working together to make sure everybody gets what they want out of this.
About 25 seconds until the green flag flies on this final practice session. Hands on the wheel there for Austin Dillon. As they're getting ready to do that, Junior, I was going to ask you, life changed for Austin Dillon, didn't it, after he won the Daytona 500 as far as the media is concerned? Immediately he was on a tour that really hasn't even stopped yet.
Yeah, that gave him a platform, one that he really enjoyed. We've seen more personality out of Austin, and it was because he was able to go out there and do that media tour and showcase, just exactly who he is. We haven't really seen. I didn't know he had that kind of personality.
Right.
He's got a lot of color and a lot of, lot to say. So more races, more race wins for him in the future. We'll see more personality coming out of that guy.
Look at this right here. That's what they're all racing to get on the racetrack before it happens.
Stay in front of.
That's, we can actually see a little bit of rain in the distance. That's the first time we've seen that. You've talked about the weather. It's been staying to the west, but that is rain, not far, maybe a half a mile away.
It is pretty close.
And this place is huge. Remember, it's a 2.5-mile racetrack, and right away, it doesn't take long for the rain to hit the windshield and our camera of the 3 here of Austin Dillon.
Yeah, you mentioned how big the racetrack is. It's not raining right here. Steve,
Right.
Is it raining down there where you are?
It just started sprinkling. I was going to say something that if it was coming from the backstretch, as soon as we saw drops on the front, you heard right there, that's a lot of rain. You talk about how big this place is. Just sprinkling on the front stretch, obviously pretty heavy over there off turn 2.
We really didn't anticipate seeing a lot of drafting, a lot of practice, draft practice in this session. So for those guys that are seeing that rain, that's a little frustrating because apparently, like you said, Jeff, they still have some things they'd like to sort out on their cars and still don't feel quite comfortable enough to go ahead and go into single car runs. So this this opportunity to practice is going to evade them. They're not going to get that chance if it's continuous rain.
Yeah, you see the rain continuing to fall on the camera. Let's go to Marty.
And Rick, it just now started raining here in the garage area to show you again what you guys were talking about, how big this racetrack is. Riding on board with Austin Dillon, he did a cool thing, guys, after the Daytona 500. Junior knows this. You get a ring for winning the Daytona 500 as the driver. And he thought it was unfair that everyone at RCR didn't get a ring. So Austin, out of his own pocket, paid for a Daytona 500 championship ring for everybody who works at RCR. He said, you know what? That place made my career. That's the least I can do is pay them back with a championship ring. But a pretty cool thing by Austin Dillon to pay for all those Daytona 500 championship rings. He delivered those last week, oddly enough, right before we came back to Daytona.
And
hey,
the rain
Steve.
now is pouring. So how dry is the Peacock pit box, Steve?
Well, I'm taking advantage of this wonderful canopy I have above me. We put the plastic down in the front just like they do on race day if the rains come in. Luckily, the wind's not blowing too much, so the rain hasn't started to come in sideways. But you can see this is the dangers of practice in Daytona. When the rains come, they come quickly. The 2.5-mile racetrack is obviously very wet. It'll be interesting to see if NASCAR tries to dry it or if they'll think that the Cup cars have had enough practice.
1 hour and about 30 seconds is what they ended up getting because they had about 30 seconds to be on the track, and actually I don't think anyone got up to speed. They were just coming onto the backstretch when the rain started.
You know what's crazy about Daytona this time of year is I'm looking off turn 2 and it looks like a winter storm,
Yes.
right? I mean, it's over there. I look at it down the back straightaway, I can see the beach and the sun's shining. It's beautiful over there.
Yeah, the hotels on the beach are lit up and the sun is shining over there, and that's 4 miles away.
Welcome to Daytona, right? There you go.
Blue skies off to our left, a little bit north of here, but right where the racetrack is, at least turns 1 and 2, they're getting drenched. NASCAR on NBCSN is brought to you by Monster Energy. Unleash the beast. Under a bit of a rain delay for this final practice for the Monster Energy Cup Series. And when you throw the question out, who do you think is the best at the restrictor plate tracks? Who better to ask than the drivers? So we did exactly that. Practice canceled for the Monster Energy Cup Series because of the rain that has passed through. A lot of people, Junior, before last weekend were asking, are you going to have a catchphrase? And what have you been thinking about? Well, we may have found one for you. Listen. Comes Larson. Larson to the bottom of the track.
Slide job.
Trying to take the lead away.
Slide job.
I'm telling you, the folks at Junior Motorsports put that together, and I don't know where they found all the footage, but it was classic. So, did it just come naturally, or did you think about that for a long time? About what can I say?
Oh, man. Well, I saw it happening as because we know that Larson's a dirt racer.
Yep.
And if he's, if anybody's going to pull a slide job on asphalt, he's going to be the guy, right? So he's trying to catch Kyle, and Kyle's going to run the top down in 1 and 2. I was really shocked that he went to the bottom.
Right.
And then when I saw him carry the speed into the corner, I was sort of hollering at you.
Yeah, you're telling me to yell it.
Yeah, you're in another booth. So I see him. I'm like, oh, heck, he sent it into that corner and committed. But right around as he's sliding up the track, I don't know if he thought he could clear him. So he kind of changed his mind and decided to give Kyle just a little bit of room on the outside, give Kyle Busch a. But I was really hollering at you in the other booth that the slide job was happening. And I don't know, it just was raw emotion. I was having such a fun time. I'm a fan. I love racing. Right. So that was a fan reaction to what I was seeing.
And Jeff, we're all fans. I mean, I think that came across last weekend, is that we all enjoy this. That was an incredible race from the drop of the green flag all the way to the slide job and the checkered flag.
It was unbelievable. And then, with your first race, and we've talked so much about, what we get to do is awesome because we're race fans. We'd be watching anyway.
Right.
We're just watching and talking about it. And then, to hear him and his emotion, I'm like, does he even know he's talking? Like, he's just yelling over there. Like, we're not even here.
Right.
And it was awesome. I mean, that's, for us to be having that much fun. And I keep thinking about the fans. Right, the heat index was like 103 at the racetrack.
Yeah. Very warm.
And I keep thinking about those guys sitting in that heat all day long, watching an unbelievable race.
Right.
And that's what we need to give our fans. If they're going to come and support and sit in that heat, we need to show them something. And the drivers and the teams and the track did such a great job last week of presenting something. By them just doing what they normally do. That's just going out and racing, and with an opportunity on the right racetrack with the right aero package, all that stuff just converged. Yeah. And we had this great race. And then hearing his emotion, you and I, like fist bumping with it, like this is a great race. Like it was just so much fun.
Yeah. So my announcing career for racing started on dirt tracks. So I saw the slide job happen a lot on dirt tracks, but we've actually seen it in NASCAR. We saw Christopher Bell try the slide job on Eric Jones. It's when the car actually is able to completely get in front of the other car. Well, this happened in Kansas last year, and Eric Jones decided not to dive below him and go by. He ran right into the back of it.
Well, this is something that we didn't really see in NASCAR racing very much. The first time I really started seeing this happen was at Bristol. When Bristol became a top lane only racetrack, the only way to pass was to just overdrive the corner, run up to the wall, and then even if the guy got next to you, it doesn't matter because now you got the high line going into the next corner. And the first time it happened to me, I'll tell you who it was, Jimmy Johnson. He drove in the corner and slid in front of me. My first instinct was wrecking. Right? I mean, that was my first instinct because you don't do that here, right? Like he's blocking me. But that has become, as these cars have become harder to pass with, and we go to a racetrack where the top lane is the best, that's become a tool that these drivers are using. That's new. This didn't happen 15 years ago. I mean, it opens the door for a conversation about, at what point when a guy slides up in front of you and the only thing he can do now is to slow down, right? He's got to slow down or he's going to pound the wall. Right. Now he's put his car in front of you 15 mile an hour slower than you're going. What do you do? And how you defend that? And do you just turn back left and try to just pass him back, cross over, or do you give him a shot? And I think that conversation and that type of racing, I think we're going to see more and more as we continue to have cars that are hard to pass with, and we have racetracks with an upper groove.
Sure. Last week in Chicago, it was so hot. Eric Almirola came over and helped Rutledge Wood out to help him cool off. Tony Stewart came by in the infield. So Rutledge decided just after that interview he would...
There's no pool. There's no water.
Well, he would pay back Eric for throwing him in the pool. It didn't quite turn out.
And now Rutledge can't walk for the rest of the weekend.
NASCAR America. Weekdays at 5 o'clock. And coming up right here at the track, we see Krista and Kyle both putting their makeup on, getting ready for NASCAR America. We'll get final thoughts from Jeff and Junior right after this. just our luck. Clear skies now. It wasn't that way at the start of the final practice. It got washed out. What did we learn from today with the Cup Series?
Well, you know, we didn't see a lot of guys drafting out there even when we did have practice. I would be a little bit worried about that. But when you think about the additional spoiler that they added to the car, and also that this is a night race which will produce cooler track temperatures and a little more grip, as a driver, you know, that we got rained out, I'm not too worried about it. I'm trusting my crew chief.
Yeah.
We'll say it's all in your hands to make sure that thing drives like it needs to.
I think it just makes the race that much more interesting. I mean, how many times have we seen a race that's really, really good after limited practice? Yep. So I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be a good race.
Well, we always thought that it was going to be a great race anytime you come to Daytona. Coming up now, it's NASCAR America. Kyle, DJ, and Krista.